The World War Z is the property that the spin multiple media. Originally is a novel by the Max Brooke, later adapted into the major Hollywood film in 2013. Starting the Brad Pitt and with the proposal sequel of the spin-off that is have the face of the department challenge. The story deals with the global zombie pandemic and the effect of the humanity. With the mix of the horror, thriller, political commentary and the global scale conflict. Key them the including the how the social response under the extreme stress, failure of the survival human solitary and the how even the casape in the and the stress failure of the introduced survival human solidity in the collapse people in the rebuild became the novel and the film in the differs in the stability and now the must test as a related but distant work that is the fully realized series under the World War Z brand of the now but they have been planned and proposal for the further adaptation. In the wrap up all the cover. For the novel background set in the plot and machine. The film adaptation, development, story and the different of the book. Box office and the financial. Behind the scene production challenge, new facts. Proposal sequels what mine is the has been critical dispensation, legal culture impact, some fun desert and now the fact. Comparison novel as the film. What is the lost gain? Consider what is next. The novel World Historical of the Zombie War. Author, inspiration and the spectre. The novel World War Z 2006 written by the Max Brooke. It is the suitable as the origin history of the zombie war. The idea of the narrative is the financial is the Max Brooke work is the United Nations Commission. Collection hand is the account from the survival around the global. Dedication of the zombie war and the conflict them. Brooke was inspired by the Good War and the original history of the World War. 2 by the stud tracker wanted to apply in our history approach to the financial global catsphere. The narrative is the episodic is the fundamental is the not one condition protagonist's journey, but the many voices of the different place, each telling the piece of the large story. Brooke has the early write in the Zombie Survival Guide 2003, which is the more notebook is the style is the fiction. Know how to survive zombie. World War Z is the most ambitious of the global epics. The structure is the chapter. The book is divided on the chapter in the theme of the film. The warning, the blame, the great panic turn into the tide, home front of the USA, around the world and above, total war and goodbye. The film has the chapter complete the multiple story, interviews and the testimonies from survival, political soldiers, scientists, refugees and ordinary citizens have the religion figures. Plot the Spanish book version became a novel in the different of the has the rob the representation outbook and the intentional detail underestimation the zombie pendency on the beginning of the patient zero in China. The child is the bitten became with the zombies. The Chinese government adopted the continental but hide to the problem is the use of the adaptation conflict over the Taiwan is the mass change its response. The infection spread is the viral illegal organ trade in the refugee feeling in the continental zone. Many governments intend the threat of the conventional disease panic underway the testament how the quickly zombie can the devastate population. The great panic collapse is the order as the disease spread people panic government began to the collapse infrastructure supply chain in the law and order at the breakdown. It is many testimonies, population peace, cities, mass zombie or into the urban center. Refugee move into the west waves. In this movie, some account came into the plot, air traffic controller, families stuck into the behind the cities, etc. etc. Turning the tide. The nation began in the adaptation strategies. Zombies denial threat to them is like disease. Zombie avoidance and the eventually zombies attention total war. Some country use the decoy trap, camouflage, other evacuation to the island in the remote zone. Military tried to the attack or the bombard the home fort is the global in the response and the United States also endangered style. Refugees fled in the martial law, combined the military and the civil response. Some country where the better diplomacy, the geography, leadership. They are the testimony from the Antarctica, from the satellite, and from outer space. Astronaut decame and the zeros remote zone struggles. Total war and the final action fact in this movie. After many waves, humans began the pushback. Some armies used the quarantine, engineered virus, trap, etc. Over the time, zombie war became the more conventional, terrorist and the liberalized. Zombie was the hunted, survive, rebuild. This is a no happy ending in the sense of the full the healing. Entire the population have the die, economies have the shattered. Social order is the difference. After month, goodbye. The book end of the reflection of the survival. Some talk as the loss, loved one, guilt, afford the rebuild. The narrative is that reflect on the stories, omitted the official reports, and the target is the need to remember all the voice. Major themes. The figuratively is the modern civilization under the catastrophe and the failure or struggles of the government of the institution then the facing someone is the interrupted. In this movie, factor is the human resourcefulness, adaptation, sacrifice, and the moral damage, global interconnection, and the what happened in the country after there the other official narrative and the why the personal testimony matters. The film World War Z in the 2030. Development and production. Fact. The movie version of the World War Z was large, troubled production with the many changes, rewrite and challenges. Some key points. Paramount picture budget does the right the Max Brook novels. This film eventually started the Brad Pitt and the Gary Lane, the former UN investigator, pull into the managing the zombie crisis. The film directed by the Mac Fetters is the know about the film is the Neverland Queens of the Slash. The screenplay wants the thought multiple writers in the various writers, including the Matthew Michael Klein, Drew in the Gordon's Damon and the Damon etc. Production cost was the abnormal. The budget is the actually city about the 119 million. Through the rumor is the introduce the further due in the reshoot and the change. Became of the scale complex special effect, thousands of zombies, large crowd scenes, where the required the famous visual effect and the spectral Israel is the well scaling sequence about the 850 digital zombies agent was the place on the earth shoot. The film ending was the significant alternate during the post production and the original ending was the darkest is the very different test audience dislike it. There is a delay, reshoot, and the budget overrun, and the fast, and the production of the constants is the very risky. The film rating is the PG-13 is the related is the return on the Boris is inspired to the many zombie films. The story of the different of the book became the film digits the heavily from the novel, where the summary of the plot, the major deviation, film plot summary, outbreak and the escape. The film opened with the Gary Lanes driving to the Philadelphia, then the sudden zombie outbreak, input in the traffic, Gary's wife and the daughter narrowly escape in the UN rescue chopper. The scale is the accumulation, fast moving zombie, mass panic, rapid spread. Requirement and the mission. The Gary is the recruitment by the UN military officials has defined in the case of the epidemic and the find ways to stop and slow and the part of the habit in the family. Either travel to the South Korea and the sea is the fertile zone and the begin the overturn is a spend is well. Then it goes the Israel. Then is the last safe zone is the behind the massive wall. But zombie flood over the wall and the climb into the other zombie. And the cases files the Gary help in the defense. The search of the vaccine clue in the fact. Gary has the scientist who is the WHO research facility. They is the learn is the infected, but they the convicted show the promising immediate response. They travel into the patient zero facilities and infect life in the zombie is the isolated chamber. Gary inject himself with the organ in the test safety, in the neck in the camouflage. So zombie ignore him. The experiment fall intensity, but their protagonist has the zombie ignore the host of the early intact. In this gives in the clue of the using fact the camouflage. Climate battle is the saving in the humanity. With the new knowledge is the final the act or the develop in the zombie camouflage. Inside the massing law the so that zombie do not trigger alarm. This allows the nuclear missile or the other weapon has been the used with the within. This film with the ending was the renewed to the show the more hopeless plan is the survival of the humanity. Carries eventually return is the family after the crisis subside. The major difference develops is the book. Single protagonist is the many voice. Film character around the Gary Lane as the novel has been no single hero. First zombie. The movie zombie are the first aesthetic and the aggressive in the novel. Zombie are the slow, more the classical, and the horror comes to the number of the precision. The signification and the localization. Many complied in the story the global responsive to the book and the drop and the major biological crew angle. The film lane is the more into the discovering and the trick camouflage in the returning the tide, whereas the book and the some more military, political and the statistical struggle. Tone and focus. The movie has an action thriller with the large set in the piece, and book is a more competitive in the survey, the global collapse and the requisition. The ending. The original ending was a shoot. It was dark. The release ending is the more uplifting and the optimized. The geographical origin. In the film, to avoid the Chinese censorship issue, the original with the outbreak changed into the novel with the Chinese patient zero narrative. The reception. The critic has a mixed review. Some precise the scale, visual spectacle, and the patient. Other critical the leak and the depth of the imagination of the novel. The Rotten Tomatoes is the World War Z is the hold the modern rating. The film version was the apologized but the flat, and the leak is the novel of the heart with the newness. The box office and the financial budget and cost. The response production has been the budget is the 119 million. Controller families stuck into the behind the cities, etc. etc. Turning the tide. The nation began in the adaptation strategies. Zombies denial threat to them is like disease. Zombie avoidance and the eventually zombies attention total war. Some country use the decoy trap, camouflage, other evacuation to the island in the remote zone. Military tried to the attack or the bombard the home fort is the global in the response, and the United States also endangered style. Refugees fled in the martial law, combined the military and the civil response. Some countries where the better dependology, the geography, leadership. They are the testimony from the Antarctica, from the satellite, and from outer space. Astronaut became and the zeros remote zone struggles. Total war and the final action fact in this movie. After many waves, humans began the pushback. Some armies used the quarantine, engineered virus, trap, etc. Over the time, zombie war became the more conventional terrorist and the liberalized. Zombie was the hunted, survive, rebuild. This is a no happy ending in the sense of the full the healing. Entire the population have the die, economies have the shattered. Social order is the difference. After a month, goodbye. The book end of the reflection of the survival. Some talk as the loss, loved one, guilt, afford the rebuild. The narrative is that reflect on the stories, omitted the official reports, and the target is the need to remember all the voice. Major themes. The figuratively is the modern civilization under the catastrophe and the failure or struggles of the government of the institution then the facing someone is the interrupted. In this movie, factor is the human resourcefulness, adaptation, sacrifice, and the moral damage, global interconnection, and the what happened in the country after there the other official narrative, and the why the personal testimony matters. The film World War Z in the 2030 development. Some reports say in the budget is the balloon due to the reshoot and the production issue, possibly higher overall. Box office earning. World War Z is a gross $202 million and above the 35% of the total gross. International marketing contribute the $337 million is above the 62% of the gross. The worldwide total about the 540 billion is the sum gross of the highly low is the variation total is the 531 million spending of the over reporting issues. The opening weekend in the US is the overall is the about the $66 million. The film about the official programs is the net higher cost. The trouble production is the concede is the commercial success into the gross term. Because the high production cost, marketing, distribution, and the break-in payment and the profit margin as a less clear, however, is the large gross likely the allow the Paramount and the investor The crop make a Jane. The World War Z is the one of the highest grossing zombie horror film ever. Thanks for the large scope. It is became the Brad Pitt highest grossing film, which globally. Behind the scene fact and the production challenge and the new fact. Here is the many interesting and the lesser known fact about the making of the World War Z. It is a challenge phase. Production trouble and reshoots. The film the underwent in the texture reshoot and the rewrite after the intense cut the tested poorly. The original ending is the rough cut it was very blank. Audience reached in the narrative the test. So a more hopeful ending was the shoot later. The shift in the narrative of the novel, the multiple of the voice and the single protagonist was the attempt to make a commercial vibes blockbuster. The film set as the location logistic complex, cold-ended, large crowd CGI, integration, stunt, etc. The large scale of the zombie horde required the new technique and the visual effects. During the production, this was a rumor of the tense between the Brad Pitt and the original director contribution and the change. Visual effect and the zombie certain. As a note, around the 8,500 digital zombies was the using the single shot into the Israel wall sequence. The movement of the zombie was the modeled using the motion capture from the constituents. The 18 Budapest countries have the zombies swaying on the twisting motion. The VFX team has the make the zombies spies look realistic, avoid the unnatural skipping in the clipping and the visual breakdown. The DGs introduced the investigation of the biological quite unrealistic. The World War Z boosted the interest of the large-scale zombie narrative in the Hollywood. It is the demonstrated is the zombie film is the sacrificing ambition in the can is the blockbuster material. Not just a niche is the horror is the challenge in the adaptation. The novel is the remain the highly recognized is the horror spectacular is the fiction circle is the initiative is the spectre is the global scale. Fun and the lesser known fact. Original title is the Jed is the World War Jed was the initially as a joke. The publisher thought the zombies was the too niche. Multiple ending shoot. There was the darker ending. Intense version is the was the scaffold. Massive VFX agents count. The 8,500 zombie per shot in the cave scene. Motion capture conditional is the into the model errors zombie movement in the contradiction is the war is the used. Brad Pitt is the highest grosser at the time. World War Z became the highest grossing film. A miracle success. The film was the called the miracle in some endless because with the so many production problems with the nonsense became as the hit. Testing biologists is the not the insane zombie activation is the unrealistic nervous system that cannot lift the fast. The subtle reference is the book into the film. Fans spotted the Iran-Pakistan war scenario was the use the dog different is the humans is the minor scenes. The sequels comparison featuring in the proposed sequence was the begin the parasite element is the enters is the last of the use. Comparing book versus this film and the giant dozer. What was the gain in the film? Is the undefined single protagonist is the narrative focus. Visual spectacular zombies set to the piece, more the immediate tension. Commercial accessibly and the more diagnosed arc at the mainstream audience. More action, fast the presidency. What was the loss the composite? The richness of the multiple voice, the global perspective, and the deep throat publicly social commentary of the diversity of the testimony. Many interesting facts locals accounted in the cultural response. The show the build in the horror collapse replies the thriller structure. Some to the book dark, the more the ambition elements. In the adaptation, some thread of the narrative. The film version made the sense of the medium into the audience, but the fan of the novel, many landmen hoped the such was the cut of the alternate. The conclusion is the what clue of the to be next. World War Z remained the facing case of the missing the from the spiraling in the most novel of the major Hollywood spectre. Financially, it's the success. Critically, it had the mixed recapitation in the legacy is the opening door of the large-scale zombie narrative. Whale is the sequel, is the not the materialized, is the idea remaining in the tantalized in the margin horror, political global collapse, and the human stories. Whatever any future adaptation tried to the near in the novel's core is the expand to the now new direction. World War Z is the likely condition to the inspiration through to the what the society response under the Cretaceous strain. World War Z is the modern zombie apocalypse movie is the span on the novel. As a blockbuster film is the video game is the adaptation is the struggle is the global war against the unplugged is the overtime has the became is the most commercially successful zombie franchise. In the what the following. The novel by the Max Brook is the structure, theme, narrative, interesting fact, and the film adaptation stories, summary, casting, production, the challenge of from the book. Box office performance is the financially analysis, critic reception stress is the criticism and the game series extended version is the game as expected. The lesser known is the new fact in the insides. Legacy sequels attempts is the mice is the come over. The World War Z is the novel by the Max Brook, was the first published in 2006. The novel is the structure as the oral history that is the spirit vision perspective. Collection is the interview is the survival official is the soldier in the scientists and the ordinary people access the global recognize there is a experience before the during and after the zombie apocalypse. The narrative has the travel and the interview is the multiple movie people reach in the responsibility fact the geography culture and the responsibility is the personal story in the between the human in the moments of the global crisis. The novel does have the same in the central protagonist in the traditional sense. The many of the story of the from side is the character, however, then the framework and the interviewer complains with the testimony and the understand how the humanity survived. The timeline beginning in the origin of the outbreak, patients zero, and then the how the disease spread with the global thought, the refugee individual origin trade network and a mass migration. Key arc in the novel introduced. The outbreak spread in the infection emergence in the government response, the failed or a response in the panic outbreak the social orders. In the turning point, however, the certain strategy and the emerging recovery and the response after the worst of the war and the rebuild of the societies and now the humanity copes in the new normal. Moral and the political reference in the disease after the leadership in the global inequities, refugees crisis and the intent of the survivors. Brooke and the use the relation in the interview introduce the name, date, hypertensive, more public in the outbreak of the offend pause of the reflection now at the thing. Could the different in the tone serious globally in the sometime medicine theme and the message, the fact. The human response in the adaptation. The story established now in the ordinary people response to the under extremely stats. Now the repetitive insight in the emergence of the how the survival of and the defense of the cooperation. Globalization in the interest in the now the so of the endemic in the own countries is in the criticism in the how our the modern travel, trade and the migration. Including in the geopolitical difference in the nation in the differently whatever nation was the amount of the different poor nation struggle in the bed of the survival in fair distributed the responsibility and the sacrifice. Some story element in the around the idea of the chosen of the save and the emerging some zone of the save other. Memory and the narrative. The became the story of the respective and the reflect on the human remember event of the idol of the trauma and the rewrite history. Strength and the critical of the novel. Strength. The oral history from the unique of the zombies fiction has the breathing rather than the narrow viewpoint, richer world building with the local and the Middle East American crowded. Individual reflection became the not purely action in the space of the political socialite and the state through the sense of the scale and the collapse of the nation, global panic and the rebuild in the impassive. Critics. Some readers feel in the lack emotion of the depth of the individual arc because the many stories at the shoot became in the span of the so many voice clinically in the personal connection at the book. There is a repetitive storyline that it is suspension, the humanity in the world from the less. Some part With of the spectrum is known the fail the overtime. Well, rewrite by the right to the dim it was the about to the fixed narrative. Visual effect in the animation. The scale of the zombie hold of the film required the advance of the crew simulation technique. One notably is the fact that the VFX soft use the AI crowd simulation tool and the simulate the zombie action in the agents was the objective, not just the rhythm motion. From the instant into the Jerusalem sequel is the zombie climb over the each other from the pyramid the scales wall the coordinate behave in the giving the impression of the intelligent have the behave rather than the dumb mess. To achieve this, the each digital zombie agent has the rule the object, climb her, seek target, and the system run the simulate that the overland had in the animated detail. Chaos and the casting. In the experience move, the Brad Pitt, the own son, Mashup, then about the 11 made the cameo. He was a shoot in the film. Is the cast includes the supporting actor Marion Innes, the Gary's wife, and the many international cast members of the scenes in the various countries. Paramount responsibly paid the US 1 million according the film rights in the World War Z book. Reception in the box office. This film was released in July 21, 2013. Opening day in the North America budget bought about the 25 million, including the Thursday night and the midnight shows. The opening weekend gross the US was the roughly 66 million, finishing the across the behind the Motor University. The final domestic in the north is the was the about 22 million. International box office outside America and the reach about the 330 million. It is the worldwide total gross ending in the 514 million US dollars. Compared with the large budget in the reshoot, some reports stage the barely broke even after the account in the marketing distribution and the cost overtime. Over in the remains the highest grossing zombie film at the time. Brad Pitt has the highest grossing film in the lead. Critical reception. On the Rotten Tomato has the mix according to the review audience. Grey with the cinema score is the B+. Critical response is the spectacular in large scale and the ambition scale in the but the criticized in the lack of the depth and the critical with the narrative and the diverse of the novel's theme. Some analysts rather than the family flat like the global action thriller movie more than the true horror and zombies narrative. Over the time, many tribes in the North the World War Z2 successfully defend the chaos. Confusion of the budget overturned. The Paramount paid 1 million for the book rights. Paramount Picture reportedly spent 1 million to the across the claim tied to the book novel. Zombies pyramid climbing behavior. One of the usually iconic scenes, the zombie stuck in the climb over the years and the heights in the concept of the design, the appeal in the Jerusalem side square. Fencing and the cancel sequence version. David Fincher is the lead attached in the direct sequel, and the sum of the adaptation compares the sequel with the planned direction to the loss in the budget issue save the budget project. Record for the zombies and the horror genre. Despite the troubled production, the World War Z remained into the highest grossing horror zombie film ever. Audience reaction and the critical reaction to the film cinema score B1 introduced the genre of the audience has been the more favorable view than the critics, than the offended sign of the effective crowd planning in the entertainment. Devastation from the novel, many hardcore fans note in the film theme tone and the degree replaced with the action focus simplified the good versus bad zombies narrative. The game mission impressed by the film and novel. The aftermath, the expensive ad, the new story inspired the local and the build the core rather than the title of the movie. Narrative lab, no proper sequels. Even the original film set the world in the crisis and the civil was the fully realized having the many speed question is the latest franchise potential. Global appeal and the international box office strength. Over the 60s of the box office remain the come into the international marketing, which the overscore has the global stories of the cross culture line. Zombie and innovation at the World War Z helped into the shift to big budget think. Studio became the more than willing to try the large. Cable drive horror, the pandemic film, combined in the blockbuster horror elements. The book is the philosophical and the framing in the reach and the other impact. World War Z, the book and the analog is the real global crisis. And the now is the national response with the whoever the threat is the social adaptation. Interplay between the game and the narratives. The game does not attempt the some story in the film, but as the insert planes the world allowed to the people to the experience episode into the different cities and the give more expensive note to the climb into the film's timeline. Overall, the novel is the widely precise to the more serious thought, the provoking and dive into the zombie literature. The film adaptation World War Z 2013 premised the story summary in the 2013 film. World War Z is a much more as a blockbuster action thrilling, quite different structure from the novels. Basic premise: the film stars of Brad Pitt as the Gary Lane, the former United Nations investigation, and the story begins with the outbreak and the rapid turn into the people into the fast-moving zombie. The infect spread left the cause the mass panic and the collapse of the social order. Carey has the film in the cut into the chaos. He is the interior of the passing and the thought rise of the novel's globin with the field in the source of the crow and the provide the global collapse. His journey takes him the survival, local South Korea, Jerusalem, etc. Comfort is a massive food in zombie during the recognition collapse. The temple the during the find clue the stop the plug. The climax remains around the discovering the biological antibiotic and the fall of the zombies and the using the knowledge of the defend the stronghold in the Jerusalem film. In the film, realization in the humanity gained the upper hand. The outbreak is the controlling and the world began the recovery. Though the not fully resolved, became the film take in the more lining horror central approaching much of the novel breathing voice is lost of the novel simplified. Different from the novel is the film simplified as a natural protagonist Gary Lane is rather than the multiple voice. Many settings in the interview style begins in the note is the omitted to the consider. The film introduced the camouflage infect the human to the fool the zombie. What is the not present in the same way in the novel. The cinematic version is the focus on the large set piece action and the interior in the strategy global recovery focus on the novel. In the film, comparison time in the narrative meant in the long term on the rebuilding and the pursuit of the only hinted. Production, casting, and the behind the scene. The budget and scale. The film with the reported budget around the 200 million. In the some reports, the budget in the reportedly ballooned especially due to the reshoot, rewrite, and the ending and other challenges. Became the zombie film with the are just the high budget. It was a bold move make the zombie war budget into the most expensive entirety of the horror and the apocalypse genre. Challenges and the reshoot. The production faced the significant difficulty in the original ending of the film. Responsibility did not work and the large portion in the 340 minutes of the footage where the reshoot of the replaced. Originally is the more complex action heavily Russian battle sequence was the planned but the latter was the script. Some interior production account the mention the purchase order into the budget airing was discovered later late in the casing of the financial confusion. Because the ending did not test well rewrite by the right to the dim it was the got into the fixed narrative visual effect in the animation. The scale of the zombie hold of the film required in the advance of the crew simulation technique. One notably is the fact is the VFX house use the AI crowd simulation tool and the simulate the zombie action in the agents was the objective, not just the rhythm motion. From the instant into the Jerusalem sequel is the zombie climb over the each other from the pyramid the scales wall the coordinate behave in the giving the impression of the intelligent have the behave rather than the dumb mess. To achieve this, each digital zombie agent has the rule the object, climb her, seek target, and the system run the simulate that the overland and the animated detail. Chaos and the casting. In the parents move, the Brad Pitt, the own son, Maddox, then about the 11 made the cameo. He was a shoot in the end in the film. Is the cast includes the supporting actor Marion Innes, the Gary's wife, and the many international cast members the seen in the various countries. Paramount responsibly paid the US 1 million according the film rights in the World War Z book. Reception in the box office. This film was released in July 21, 2013. Opening day in the North America budget bought about the 25 million, including the Thursday night and the midnight shows. The opening weekend gross the US was the roughly 66 million, finishing the cross the behind the Motor University. The final domestic in the north is the was the about 22 million. International box office outside America and the reach about the 330 million. It's the worldwide total gross ending in the 514 million US dollars. Compared with the large budget in the reshoot, some report stage the barely broke even after the account in the marketing distribution and the cost overtime. Over in the remain the highest grossing zombie film at the time. Brad Pitt has the highest grossing film in the lead. Critical reception. On the Rotten Tomato has the mix according to the review audience. Grey with the cinema score is the B+. Critical response is the spectacular large scale and the ambition scale in the but the criticized in the lack of the depth and the critical with the narrative and the device of the novel's theme. Some analysts rather than the family flat like the global action thriller movie, more than the true horror and zombies narrative. Over the time, many travels in the note the World War Z2 successfully depends the chaos production. The flash film right into the miracle is the so many levels that the actually work. Box office financially analyst. That's the big taper in the number the medical the impact. Budget and the earning. Production budget is the commonly is the 200 million. Given the reshoot production in the overly cost is the over the 250 million. The global box gross is the nearly 2.8 multiplier base in the budget. But gross box office is the not profit theatrical distribution. Marketing as in the cost and the reduction in the shares. Some reports suggest that after all the cost in the film might just have the broken even the made modest profit. The box office breakdown and the ranking. Domestic North America share is the 2002 million, is the 38% of total. International share is the 337 million, is the 60 to 63% total. Opening weekend allowed the strong start is the 66 million. On the box office Mojo card chat in the World War Z listing in the have the opening of the US dollar 66 million across the theaters. The film is ranking in the franchise listing in the box office Mojo by the various genre metric. Crossing the number of franchise books and the World War is the remaining in the solo major film. So are the franchises of the total. In the term of the horror film, World War Z is the almost their highest gross is the not as the exclude of the dropping in the depreciation. Profitability and the risk. The risk was high as the very few mid to the large budget zombie films have the success in the success such a scale. Marketing, distribution, reshoot likely the push cost of the significant. The fact is the still and tough to the consider into the hit in the sum in the many analysts find the surprising and the delay issues and the complete the production would be the accelerate agent of the overhead cost. The criticism and strategy legacy. Strength and what the work. Scale and the script in the film deliver in the large set of the piece. Massive horror tension in the worldwide scope. And the zombie crowd signed with the climate agent, the pace, the behavior, the visually complaint, the memorable. Star power is the global appeal. The brand Pitt invest the international local mass marketing help to the growth market. The movie made in the zombie look theater even the fertile walls and the sense of the bread the crowd scenes in the effective. The introduced the some fresh visual machine and the zombie pyramid while scaling walls and the added novelty. Criticism. Some critics found the human character solo the film lean about the action and then character development. The deviation in the novel and the fan who the want to the more faithful adaptation. Narrative has the criticism and the pacing of the some lap or the logic of the one trick. Realization and the camouflage the feel the converted. The product backstory reshoot rewriting show the film was the somewhat the possible behind the scene. And the sometimes feel less the horror film in the more post politics action thriller losing some the novel inspiration. The legacy franchisee Propend became in the box office success, and the zombie war the remained the core to the plane, and then the Hollywood considers the large scale zombie pandemic project. Whoever was the know the prepare the direct sequence the never materialized and the note was talked in the sequence with the David Fincher attack to the potentially in the dark in the different theme, but they reduced the budget issue in the creative completion in the sequel project was the immediately conceded. The cancellation is a struggle with the defensive commercial success, making the sequel the still to the risky given the cost and the complexity. The film was actively rising the bar from the zombie cinema in the term of the spectacle, influencing it to the big budget zombie of the pandemic story are the conceit. The film adaptation and the series expectation is the whale in the World War Z is approximately known as the novel as the film. There is the game adaptation is the exposition of the ad of the series idea. The video game, the World War Z, is a co-op third-person shoot is the development is the releasing in the PlayStation. On the media series possibility, where sometimes people reference the World War Z was a series. They the continue in the limited was the new television series of them directly continues the story of the film. The closest to the series is episodic in the structure of the novel, interviews, and the episodic mission of the game. If the sequel film, the TV adaptation, and the development of the future it may be expected into the fuller series treaty. The interesting new less known and the fact. The many facts considered in the left know about the World War Z across its media. Zombie AI agent is one notice the visual effect team using the crowd simulation tools as a gives zombie simulation of the agents rather than the dumb sweat. Coming by the Brand Pitt son. Brand Pitt son is the mad dog. Appearance in the film in the cameo role he gets the shoot in the head twice. Reshoot and the rewriting to the ending. Is a large chunk of the film is the ending is the rewalk is the original version is the reportedly it did is the test well. So the ending was the remaining. Is the part of the Russian battle sequence was the remove of the killed back. In the one is the anecdote is the looking in the director's cut is the production team reports in the set in the silence became with the entity did not work. Budget mistake in the discovery of the unsolved in the order. During the production in the Malta, a stuck in the purchase order has been forgotten in the desk drawer. As the considered the cost to the total millions of dollars and the confusion in the budget overturned. The Paramount paid $1 million for the book rights. Paramount Picture reportedly spent $1 million to the across the claims tied to the book novel. Zombies pyramid climbing behavior. One of the usually iconic scenes the zombie stuck in the climb over the years and the heights in the concept of the design with the appeal in the Jerusalem side square. Fencing and the cancel sequence work. David Fincher is the lead attached in the direct sequence and the sum of the adaptation compares the sequel with the planned direction to the loss the budget issues save the budget project. Record for the zombies and the horror genre. Despite the troubled production, the World War Z remained into the highest grossing horror zombie film ever. Audience reaction and the critical reaction to the film cinema score B1 introduced the genre of the audience has been the more favorable view than the critics than the offended sign of the effective crowd planning and the entertainment. Devastation from the novel, many hardcore fans note in the film theme tone and the replaced with the action focus simplified the good versus bad zombies narrative. The game mission impressed by the film and novel. The aftermath, the expensive ad, the new story inspire the local and the build the core rather than the title of the movie. Narrative lab, no proper sequels. Even the original film set the world in the crisis and the civil war the fully realized having the many sweet question is the latest franchise potential, global appeal, and the international box office strength. Over the 60s of the box office remain the come into the international marketing, which the overscore has the global stories of the cross-culture line. Zombie genre innovation at the World War Z helped into the shift big budget think. Studio became the more than willing to try the large. Cable drive horror, the pandemic film, combined in the blockbuster horror elements. The book is the philosophical and the framing in the reach and the other impact. World War Z, the book and the analog is the real global crisis. And the now is the national response with the whoever the correct is the social adaptation. Interplay between the game and the narratives. The game does not attempt the some story in the film, but as the inside planes the world allowed to the people to the experience episode into the different cities and the give more expensive note to the climb into the film's timeline.